Are we done with that, or?
I don't think we really talked much about it.
Jeranism has shower. I missed a lot of it. Like, what happened? Was it
Jeranism
like
has very low energy.
Did Witsit get him, or?
It wasn't groundbreaking. That's for sure.
No, there was nothing exciting about it.
Yeah.
There's no like clear winner.
It's the concession that Jeran, basically his end speech was, he conceded the fact that it's a sphere and that he feels bad that he misled people, essentially.
Yeah, Jeran got shook up, but he just wasn't willing to acknowledge it. He just says because sky equals ball or something. It's like pure just nah by the end, I think. He's just ignoring Witsit's points.
Well, in a way, it seems like they talk past each other to a degree because, I mean, I think there's certain valid points that Jeran has, which we've talked about on here and all of that in terms of the path of the sun and how it arcs, the opposite way in the south. I know people say the sun doesn't match to the ground, but like I've always said, you can take like the ground position of the sun, like every hour as it tracks along the ground, you could put a little flag in the ground. You'd have 24 flags and 15 degrees each hour. And those are physical places on the ground that the sun will be directly above. So, I mean, whatever the sky is, it's tracking upon the ground, unless someone would claim that's not the case, that the sun doesn't track. So basically what I'm saying is that the Tropic of Capricorn, let's say, when the sun is in the south, that is a circle, or that is a path on the Earth. And you could put little red flags along that path. So the sun is tracking along the actual physical ground, in the north and the south. So
if that is true, then if that is true, then you have to explain, if I'm on one latitude and I did a period of 6 hours and I put a flag every hour, and then I moved up another latitude north, like if I start south, 5 degrees from south, and then moved up to 10 degree, 15 degree up to each latitude, right? Whatever. You're gonna see that the flags won't match. So if that's true, how does that work? In other words, every hour is not exactly 15 degrees. As you move up, it changes per latitude. This is SunCalc information, by the way. This is not me. I have it. If Griggs has it, he can read in the back of the book. There's objective proof right there. So what you just claimed to be just an observation is my point. Is when you add multiple observations simultaneously. In other words, you have had one person on a 10 degree latitude, another person on a 30 degree latitude, another person on a 45 degree latitude, or whatever. As you move north, you're saying it's going to be 15 degrees for each individual, each latitude. If you go down one longitude line, move up the latitude line, you're saying that it's going to be consistent. Data doesn't say that. That's what I documented. So if you can explain it to me, AI seems not to be able to.
Yeah, it's always going to be 15. 360 degrees. There'll be different distances though. The further
it's not always 15 though. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Like I give objective data. It's not like if I'm at one longitude line and I maintain that one longitude line and I move from south to north or north to south, doesn't matter. It's arbitrary. And I just calculate the 6 hour change from sunrise to noon. You'll notice as you move down, it's moving in the sky at different rates. And that's SunCalc data, not my data. So if that's true, the apparent position of the sun isn't moving exactly at 15 degrees. It changes.
Okay, it's just false.
It's not false. I have objective evidence for it. Riggs, go to the book right in the back of the book under models. Go look at it. It's right there. This is objective right from SunCalc.
Well, there's 360 degrees in a circuit, and the sun does that every day.
It doesn't do 360 degrees exactly either. But it doesn't do 103. It doesn't do 300.
All right, please stop dominating and interrupting if you want to have a real conversation.
But you're lying. It's not a 360 degree perfect circle.
All right, well, you didn't even let me finish speaking. Anyways, I'd like to talk with someone else. You're obnoxious.
Yeah, but it's not perfect 360 degree. This is the fallacy. It's not a perfect circle.
We're not even having a conversation because you're talking and just all output, and then you're just interrupting when someone responds. So we could have a conversation, but you just have a different agenda going on. So what would you like to do? Do you want to have an actual conversation, or do you want to just shout and interrupt every time that someone responds?
Do you think 360 degree represents reality in totality or no? Or yes or no?
Well, the sun makes a circuit every 24 hours.
Not a 360 degree perfect circle. No. It speeds up every day, so it goes past 360 degrees by 1 degree. So in other words, it does more or less than 360 degrees. Like 23.56 or 23.54.
Yeah, that's the stars. It's 23 hours, 56 minutes, 4 seconds.
You've got sidereal motion and you got diurnal motion. They're both different. The sun does not move.
What's the point of this? What are we debating over this? What is the point of all this? Where is this going? What is the point of this?
I don't know. Can I just go back to hold on a second. Can I just go back to what I was saying? Data, you're bringing up a whole bunch of different points and you're not. Does anyone have a response to what Data's saying?
He's telling you the sun is not moving. You're turning.
Wrong.
Well, it depends on what. Okay,
I'm saying the sun's moving. That's why you have the different rates of diurnal motion versus sidereal motion.
No, brother. The Earth is not a perfect sphere, brother. That is why.
Oh, okay. So 3959 is wrong. 3959 is wrong,
brother.
All right.
So 359.
All right. I'm just muting you. I'm just muting you guys and bringing it back to the conversation. I'm sorry. So what we were actually talking about before Data's derailing into a bunch of other random points that he's not really substantiating. I'll unmute you in a second, but it's just absolutely obnoxious. So anyways, what I wanted to say originally about putting the flag with the GPs, I just wanted to say that in terms of the star motions and in the north and the south and so on, you could take that to the next level and you could put little flags underneath every single star. So you could go across the entire surface of the Earth. Data started talking about how they won't match up and all that. You'd have to substantiate that. You say it very quickly and then you dominate. You jump to another point. I don't know if you're playing a game or if you actually want to have a genuine engagement. So you're jumping to other points. Originally, we were talking about the path of the sun, and I was talking about the debate and how Jeran and what they were talking about. And the thing is, as the sun moves, there is a GP point, is what I was bringing up. And so the path that the sun tracks upon the ground is consistent in terms of that GP point. You can put a flag underneath that GP, and it will be there every 24 hours in a slightly different spot because it's moving throughout the year. But it will be, I mean, only like due to the latitude. Like if it's the Tropic of Cancer and then it's one day after the solstice, it's going to be a little closer. But there's a GP. It basically makes a spiral. So all I was going to say as well is that with the stars, you could put little flags underneath the stars in the north and the south, every single star, and you could put them all over the Earth. And what you would end up with is two vortexes. You'd end up with the north, the rotation of stars, and then you'd have one flag at the Polaris, and you'd have every single star going out, just like we see the star trails. You'd have the ones at the equator that go straight, and then you would have all the flags in the south that are all in the southern region. You could put little flags beneath every single one. And what that would map out is two circles, two rotations, two poles. So that's what I was bringing up originally. So is there any way anyone could refute that the ground would match that in terms of those two rotations?
That's what the celestial data says, and that's why it doesn't work on an AE map.
One right there.
You can't have poles on flat plains. You know that, right?
So like I stated, I've tried to model this over and over again, whether it's an infinity sun, whether it's the two poles, boob flat Earth. You cannot model two apparent rotations on a planar system.
Exactly, you can't. It's impossible.
However, I still do not believe people are living upside down for it to happen.
Yeah, you absolutely can. What Rixie just posted, you have a stereographic projection of a sphere with two poles. That's what an electric field is. The sky is an electric field above the Earth.
Sure, like a speaker.
Yeah, there's no contradiction to that matching on a planar surface. Whatever the continents are and what the layout of the land is another question.
Oh, you mean you have to go to the sky? Brother, you're on the ground. You don't want to leave the ground. Remember, you cannot have poles on a planar surface. It's impossible.
Yes, you can.
No, you cannot. you would have to put you're going to have to put something circular, something what you call it? Yeah, something.
Infinity symbol is one way.
Right.
That's the only way.
Yeah, he's gonna put a cylinder somewhere, right? Something circular, something round. You're gonna have to put to create your poles, right? You say you don't have that. You guys don't believe there is round things or spherical things. You're flat, right? So you cannot have poles. You're not going to borrow the globe to try to fit your flat plane. You better stand firm on your flat plane.
All right, you're not really addressing what we're actually talking about. Go ahead. Go ahead. I don't know what your name is now. Dual pole FE equals number 1 FE.
No, I was gonna suggest we not talk about the globe for a second because we were talking about FE. So, okay, what were we talking about? Two poles of rotation. Okay.
Two opposing rotations on a planar surface.
Yeah, I'm just saying on a very basic level, you could, like the thing I was saying about the GPs and the flags, but you could also just take elevation angles to Polaris or elevation angles to Sigma Octantis at different distances, and you can circle either of them. So you could circle the North Pole or you could circle Sigma Octantis. And there's GP points and stars under each and every one of those points. I don't know why anyone's saying that wouldn't be the case.
Apparently the Chinese have this data. Do you have a way to access the data that the Chinese have? Because they, before the Greek mind, apparently took the data and put it to a sphere. Chinese astrology seemed to have worked it out. I haven't come across it. I couldn't find it. There is one paper I came across, but I can't read Chinese.
I'm sorry.
The main comment I'm referring to is just that it's like in the debate, Jeran is saying the AE map, and basically what I'm bringing up is what he's bringing up as well, is that you have the northern rotation and then you have the sun path. And the point is that in the south, everything anti-arcs. So that's what he was talking about when the sun sets right to left. He's saying as the sun's setting, it's dipping off to the left. Whereas, when it's at the Tropic of Capricorn, and when you're in the north, it's curving off to the right. And like this, like in the star paths show that. And sorry, I'm just trying to pull this image up real quick. Like just this basic thing right here, which is the star trails at the equator. All of these stars have GP points on the ground, every single one. And unless someone's going to claim that there's not consistent GP points, I guess Data was trying to say they're different, they're all different positions. That's not the case, dude. They use it for celestial navigation. There are consistent GP points all the time. The sun does. The sun always moves 15 degrees an hour.
It doesn't. The mean sun does.
All right, and
which is a fake sun.
Okay. Well, anyways,
plus or minus 1% or.
No. Again, you guys haven't done your work, man. Again, you have a mean sun, which is the average. It's not the actual apparent motion of the sun. The apparent motion of the sun changes. The mean sun is the constant based on a 360
It's a slightly
rotation.
different topic. The thing is, when I brought this up, I was mentioning you could put a flag in the ground every hour. I mentioned the 15 degrees. I understand there is like the equation of time and some of the specifics. I guess you kind of took it off into that direction, which kind of did frustrate me. I apologize. I got frustrated because it was like you're just railing and kind of ramroding into all these other things. And I mean, I hear you. Those are points that could be made. But could we actually stick with what was actually being discussed? So the point is about their debate and what was being discussed. I'm just pointing out that there are GP points. You could put a flag every hour underneath the sun in whatever position you are. If it's at the equator, Tropic of Capricorn, Tropic of Cancer, there's the question of how the sun is. And that's the point. Jeran is saying it's the idea that it's always circling the North Pole, and what their Antarctica trip and just the 24-hour sun in the south in general for Jeran showed that the sun doesn't always circle the North Pole. Therefore, Jeran is like, okay, can't be AE map, therefore flat Earth impossible. And Witsit's response in a way was like all these other things like the celestial theodolite and how there's no curvature and all these other factors as to, it can't be a globe, therefore, just falsifying the globe itself. But like that star trail pattern I just put there, you have the northern and southern rotation and the straight line at the equator. And you could put flags in the ground underneath every single one of those stars, or when the sun's doing its path, you could put a flag underneath the sun. So, one response Witsit could have said is okay, the AE map is falsified, but that doesn't mean an entire flat Earth is falsified. And it does end up being a two-pole flat Earth. there's really no other option. It's that or a globe. And that's why I was asking, does anyone have a refutation to that?
The reality is that it's a paradox because, like I said, the Earth presents itself as a topographical planar stationary system with two opposing rotations above.
Yes.
So how could that's just objectively true. So the idea is, how do you make, because all the ancients acknowledge that. That's why they led with presuppositions. Even, like I said, I keep being redundant here, but if you read the Alchemist or you go and read how Ptolemy developed the globe model, he himself leads with a presupposition acknowledging the Earth is a massive body, and without assuming what the horizon is, he couldn't develop the model. Now, he's got errors in his thing, and because he basically used sticks and shadows to determine it, but it's one point of view. What I find is if you make multiple measurements or multiple observations simultaneously, they're not all going to line up. They're going to be, some maybe refraction is the issue here, but they're not all going to line up 100%. And
you would have to substantiate that claim of what you mean, because if you do what I said,
I'll give an example.
You take a GP of a star. Hold on. If you do what I said, you take any one of those stars from those star trails I posted, any one of them in the north rotation or the south or the equator, any single one of them, and you get the GP of that star observably, and you put a flag in the ground, and then you travel thousands of miles away from that flag, and now you're in a totally different place. If you then decide, you know what, I want to get back to that flag, you point your boat at that star, and you start traveling, and you're going to end up at that GP point. So yes, it's consistent.
What I'm saying, I'm not disagreeing with the GP point, but if you were going to have two observers measure different apart from each other, measure different locations, they're not going to be 100% accurate in distance between the 2 points. They're going to be off. In other words, when you use a sextant, let's say, you're going to be like 1 mile to 2 miles off from your location. Like, this is just like, it doesn't matter, because you're going to be measuring something with optics and refraction. So you're never going to get this 100% true. Now, they have got obviously computations and algorithms to correct the error for refraction, and obviously apply a geodesic in their model, because the Earth isn't perfectly flat.
You're talking about taking multiple angles to multiple stars. I'm not really referring to that. I'm talking about just simply the GPs of the stars and where they match on the ground.
I'm telling you, if you have
multiple angles to multiple locations.
No. If you have two observers observing the same star but different locations, they're not going to have the same measurement to the distance to the point. They're going to be off. And even with a sextant, you're 1 mile to 2 miles off in calculation. So if you get up to 5,000 feet, if you get up to 5,000, well, that's practicality, though. That's practicality, right?
It's a non sequitur. I'm talking about the GP points and how they match to the ground. And again, if you took a flag and you went under each of those GPs, you put it in the ground, and you did that for every single star, on the ground, you would end up with 2 massive rotations and a straight line at the equator. Therefore, that's what the Earth layout is. There's no other way it can be. You cannot have those 2 poles on an AE map. It's just impossible. Unless somebody wants to contest that there's not consistent GP points, and then that throws celestial navigation out the window. Unless somebody wants to say, nope, the stars are not in a consistent GP, meaning if you put a flag under each one of those, then they're not going to, the star won't line up there the way that you would have to say that the GPs are all just random and the stars are all just mixed match.
The definitive proof that it would be a sphere is to head 0 degree heading or a 90 east or west straight on the equator. And if you could fly straight without banking left or right, that would be the final determination in sphere.
Dude, every single thing you say is a non sequitur. Can we just let some other people get in? I'm bringing up a point related to their debate, and every single thing you said is a non sequitur. Are you doing it on purpose? What are you doing?
So
can we actually have the conversation without you derailing it into non sequitur after non sequitur? Otherwise, I'll just back out. You guys can just carry on. Because if you're going to dominate and do this, it's very frustrating, because I'm bringing up a point to actually relate to their debate, and I don't know what you're doing, but I guess you just want to have it be about you and just derail into non sequiturs over and over.
So you're stating that you put flags in every GP point of the star, it will show apparent rotations, opposite rotations with the flags. In other words, the flags will either bank right or bank left, depending on the north or the south.
That is not even close to what I'm saying, not even in the realm. We're talking about how the stars and the sun track upon the ground and what the shape and layout of the ground is. The AE map is highly problematic, and because of the fact that that at the equator on the AE map, it's making a circle instead of a straight line. And also on the AE map, when the sun goes to the Tropic of Capricorn, it's making a larger concentric circle. That is not what the actual path of the sun does, nor the path of the stars. They do the counter rotation, which is why it fits their globe model. People in the past have said, well, maybe there's like a refractive effect in the south, or there's like a lens that's like warping it, or something, you know, making the star field. There have been some different sort of ideas.
The caustic cup thing.
Yeah, but what I'm talking about the GP points, if you take an AE map and you have those two rotations and you put all the flags in the ground, and then you start moving, and if that's in the south, if you start going around in a circle, as you start moving, all those GP points would have to change. So we would not have consistent GP points. So what I'm saying about the flags is if you just put a flag in the ground under every single, like, okay, here's what I'm saying. You freeze frame the sky. You just freeze frame it in the middle of the night, 3 a.m. You freeze frame it right there. And you freeze time, basically. And then once you've frozen time, you go and you put a flag under every single GP of every star. Maybe you have a yellow flag for the sun. What you're going to end up with is what the sky looks like is what the ground would be. 2 poles. And however the land layout is laid out, that's what you would have. So I'm just pointing out that like what Jeran's talking about is like, okay, the AE map is falsified. Oh no, because of what I just mentioned, the 2 rotations, the 24-hour sun in the north and south. Witsit was bringing up points about the globe and how it's falsified and, you know, some of those things. But the solution Jeran would need is that the stars do match to the ground. And the only way that is, because we have a 2-pole sky with a straight line at the equator, is that on a planar surface, that's how the ground would have to be laid out. You'd have 2 actual poles. So that's what I was saying. Can anybody refute that? That would be the case. If you have GPs that are direct, just like if you're in a room and you have a bunch of lights on your ceiling and you put a little flag under each light, and if your two light patterns are two spiral things with a straight line at the equator, then that's what the ground would be, and all your flags would be on the ground laid out in that fashion. So Jeran's correct. The AE map is impossible with the sky. Unless you have moving GPs. And if you don't have moving GPs, the AE map is absolutely a psyop. It's 100% false. And the only thing you're left with is a globe or a 2-pole flat Earth. And that's why I'm asking if anybody can refute that. That's going off that there are consistent GPs, that you could put flags in the ground. If there's not consistent GPs and you have a moving poles and moving 24-hour suns on the outside of an AE map, I guess that's a different deal.
The AE clearly states what it is. It's not a flat Earth map. It's a sun calculator. It's not a flat Earth map. It's made to tell the time of where the sun is. So it's the
it shows the northern.
It's notion.
It's northern projection.
It's nothing but a sun calculator. Is what it is. It's not a flat Earth map. It's basically just the position of the sun at a certain time during a certain latitude and longitude. That's all it is. It's just a sun. It's not a map.
It's just map for the north. It absolutely is for the north.
It's just a sun. The way it was designed is not the way I understand and what I read. The intention was it's a sun calculator.
Technically, this is another non sequitur. Does anyone have a response to
you just said, is the map wrong? And I said, yes, it's not even supposed to be a map. It's supposed to be a sun calculator. So I just answered you. The motivation behind making it was not to make a flat Earth map, but to make a sun calculator, the time and date of the sun, the sunrise, and the position of the sun based on latitude and longitude. Nothing to do with the shape of the Earth.
That might be one purpose of it, but it is a map and it's centered at the north and goes out from the north with the land and the latitude and longitude lines, which you can take elevation angles to Polaris. Like if you're in Texas and you want to set up a sundial, you need to point the gnomon of the sundial at Polaris, and that's going to be a particular angle. So the AE map is a grid that comes out from the North Pole and extends out with all of the land. The issues come at the equator and going south, which is where the AE map starts to fail, which is what has been accentuated with them taking the trip and then the additional factors of this. And there's people just, because of this problem, people are just saying, well, their trip was fake or, taking all these other routes. And I understand there's other issues with the 2-pole. I'm not saying it's 100% a 2-pole flat Earth. I haven't mapped the entire Earth. What I'm just asking is that if there's consistent GPs and the way I described it, where you freeze frame the sky, you put a flag in the ground, you would end up with 2 poles, 2 rotations in a straight line at the equator. So however the land would be laid out would have to be laid out under that grid. And that's what I'm saying. Does anyone have a refutation or any way to assert that an AE map could be consistent when you have those consistent GPs and they're making those 2 rotations, just as we see? That was the main point I was trying to see if anyone had a response to.
Well, there has to be an explanation for 2 opposing rotations on a planar system, because that's what we observe.
Right, and the AE map fails at doing that.
The AE map was never meant to be a map like in the way that the flat earthers presented it. It's just a sun calculator. Now, the problem is, I think, what is the sun 9,000 miles high in the that Gleason model? So you're getting a 9,000 mile high sun from it.
I mean, it is a map projection. I don't know why you're saying it's only a sun calculator. Or I mean, a way it's one thing it does, but
all maps are wrong, Geo. That they don't have the right land masses, they don't have the right shapes, they don't have it. This is just basically like a GP position of the sun, essentially. So what you want to find right there is a GP position of the sun just projected on a planar system. It doesn't have.
So we can go off that. We can forget the stars. That's exactly what I'm saying, and that's fine that you're saying it's a sun calculator. So that's fine. So if you want to use it as that there's a GP point of the sun. I originally said, every hour you could put a flag in the ground, the 15 degrees, and then you went on a side thing on that. So if you want to use it as that, that's fine. So the sun, like every day we look up, we see the sun. It's at a particular place above the Earth, and depending on where you are, it's very consistent. So when the sun is at the Tropic of Cancer, if you were to do what I said, put the flag under the sun while it's at the Tropic of Cancer, you would make a circle, and your flags would be in a circle. And if you go to the North Pole and you see the 24-hour sun, you can point your finger at it as it's circling around you. So it is circling when it's at the Tropic of Cancer, and you could do the GPs. So that's all good for the North, meaning the AE map projection, etc. That all fits, that works. The elevation angles to Polaris, etc. Now, if you get to the equator, though, it doesn't continue doing those concentric circles. The sun goes straight, and the stars go straight at the equator. They don't continue making that concentric circle. So the AE map is good up until the equator, essentially, even though it's not really good because the equator is not curved. So it's actually like it's good until like the Tropic of Cancer, or somewhere between the Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn, when it actually splays out and starts going straight at the equator, which is why it works with their globe model. It doesn't mean the Earth's a globe, but that does fit with that. They're just reifying the sky, the celestial sphere, into saying the ground is the celestial sphere of the sky. But when you go south, the AE map completely fails, because it denotes that there's consistent concentric circles, and that the sun continues making circles, concentric from that northern center, which is not what it does. It arcs the other way. So that's why there's just no way to have the AE map functionable at all. Unless, like I said, somebody can refute what I'm saying. And the only way is if there's not consistent GP points. You could say, oh, the GPs are just moving all over the place. The sun is just apparent. It's just kind of going with you, and it's just apparent to each person. If that's the case, then you would have to refute the GPs. And if you cannot do that, then the AE map is absolutely 100% false. And then you're left with a 2-pole flat Earth. That's what I'm asking. Can anyone come back? Can anyone be like, no, actually, it could be some other way?
The AE map, as far as the celestial bodies go, is false. We've known this for a couple of years now.
Well, it's good for the North. It's decent. Like the whole rotation around Polaris of all those stars, as it splays out, the latitude lines are pretty accurate. That's why you can point, point a sundial or take elevation angles to Polaris. It all works in the North. There's no problem with it in the North.
It's apparently the argument for the Hebrew cosmology, or the Talmudic view of the Earth. It's because they were localized at a certain position to only perceive the reality to be one way or another, until the Greek mind came by and created the armillary sphere, which represented the opposing shadow rotations that you observe due to the celestial bodies' opposing rotation. That's why you had the refutation of the Earth no longer being flat, is because they couldn't represent those parent rotations on in the Hebrew cosmology or the Talmudic cosmology. So then you had the Chinese astrology I haven't seen what the Chinese have done. I've tried to find it. I think it's just like a big mystery, but they apparently had 1,000 years of astrology or astronomy. I haven't found it. So maybe you should look there, because apparently they have an explanation for it that I haven't seen yet.
It's not just the Greeks. Did you know that half the stars just about in the sky have Arabic names?
I forgot to mention as well, the Arabic are pretty good at creating and helping the model as well. They have a lot of history with algorithm, mathematics, geometry as well.
The astrolabe? Yep.
Astrolabe, yeah, for sure. Actually, that was made by a 12-year-old girl. The beginning of a 12-year-old princess started the astrolabe.
So I mean, like this image I'm posting right here is just like a basic electric field with 2 poles. We've all seen images like that. This one's like kind of shows them a little bit more kind of as like a vortex. So I mean, I'm just simply saying, if you were to take the AE map of the north and go on the right side of that, like the right pole there, and put the AE map as we know it, you could put Polaris, you could have all the star trails, they're all circling out. The latitude lines are all circling out. You'd have Russia and Canada and all the continents coming out. That's all good on that side of it. The thing is, the AE map just keeps with that center and says, yep, it just keeps going out in concentric circles. But the stars don't do that. They do what this shows. They actually start to go straight at the equator, and then they anti-arc, and they make a whole nother rotation around the southern rotation. Therefore, I'm just simply stating you would need a second AE map. You need a southern AE map, another one, that is centered at the South Pole. And then you have concentric circles in the star trails. Let me just finish. All with the GP points, same as you would in the north. The star trails all coming out from the southern AE projection, as it were. So you'd have a north AE and a south AE, and then the straight line at the center. That would account for what the sky does.
I tried to model what you just said there. The only way to do it is to have an infinity symbol. It's the only way to get the opposing rotations on a planar surface, even with your magnetic fields.
Yeah, that's because that point at the center of the axis of rotation has been stretched outward to be every edge of that sphere. And the dual pole variant fixes that. It takes that and puts it back together where it's supposed to be.
You're forgetting the sidereal motion and the diurnal motion. They have to work in congruence. Some type of congruency.
You're just bringing up a random thing.
Stop talking now. Stop talking now.
Over and over. I'm sorry.
He's intentionally doing that. Yeah, and you're the biggest victim of it.
Who's the victim?
Him. He's the one doing it. Sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
No, it's all good. We just can't have a cohesive conversation when he's doing it over and over. So I don't know. I mean, we either leave him on unmute and he keeps doing that, or we mute him and we actually have a cohesive conversation.
He tries to obfuscate the conversation by like bringing up random things to try to like skip the person off.
Yes. Yep. Railroads the conversation all over the place.
Yeah, no. So everything you're saying, Gio, is pretty correct. I agree with basically everything you're saying. The dual pole setup, in my opinion, is the best way to model the observations we see both in the southern hemisphere plane in this case and the northern hemisphere plane. So
yeah, I mean, this image right here kind of shows the geometries. Like you have a sphere. See that AE thing on the bottom? That's like a projection of like the southern part of that sphere in that image. So that'd be like if you took the coordinates of that sphere and you put it down onto a flat plane, you would end up with an AE of the south. And then you could put one above and have another AE of the north, which is what those are. And then the vertical one there shows the two rotations as the stereographic projection. So it's like you have to have the two hemispheres, as it were, of the Earth. But on a globe, they put it on a globe. On a planar surface, those two hemispheres have to be represented as AE projections on the ground, which then, with two of them, which meet in the middle, which is what an electric field is, ultimately. So it's like the whole AE thing just forgets about the entire southern part of the world, basically. It's like the human head has two eyeballs. You have like your north and south, as it were. Like if you were imagine your left eye is like the northern AE map, your right eye would be the southern, or however you want to think about that. And the AE just forgets about one of the eyes and just takes one of them from the north and expands it out. And it doesn't match with the sky.
Yep. Yep, there's a lot to say with this. This is there's a lot to say with this this change in this geometry. Antarctica is the outer edge of this one, and the other one it's near the southern point that we see. Which one is more true? Maybe Flat Earth Data has an opinion on that, and we don't want to hear about, oh, there's a projection this and a projection that. We're talking about real distances, lines in the sand that we've measured, that we fly over, that we boat over. One of these claims, it's a border around the whole world containing all the oceans.
Sure.
And another, okay, go ahead. Thank you.
What you want to do is you want to add a sun on top of that field of yours with the two opposing rotations, and show me where the sun follows a path.
The sun follows those field lines. What is that animation you have?
Just put one orb on there, and show me how you can have opposing rotations with the sun on a planar system.
Okay, we can show both solstices coming in a second.
You just obfuscated what I just said. So again,
is that not what you're asking for?
Put an orb of the sun, and show me it following a path that has two opposing rotations.
Yes, it would look like this. One of the animations that he made. Wait, that's a freeze frame. Sorry, that's not the actual. Or which one did you want to post?
It's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, those are your opposing rotations, and that is the solstices, which was the question that I asked you. It's completely relevant. Thank you. Go ahead. There you have it.
So again, you're not showing me what I asked.
Take a look at it first before you have an opinion. Take a look at what I
Again, you're not listening. I'm not interested.
I'm not going to listen because you haven't looked.
I already looked at it. I've seen it before. I model shit, dude. I'm telling you.
Okay,
I know how to model. Yeah, I know how to model. So again, you cannot model an orb as the sun going in opposing rotations on a planar system unless it's an infinity symbol.
Between the dual pole setup and the single pole Gleason setup, they're polar opposites. They are not the same. Which one would you prefer?
So again, listen to my instruction. Take the sun orb. Forget about your grid system.
I don't care about your instruction. I honestly, this is really.
Don't get emotional. Don't get emotional now.
I'm about to back out the convo. This is just the last thing that I'm.
Good. See you later.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
I'd rather listen to what you were saying. I mean, you were the one who brought data back into it. Did you want to say what you were saying? It might be more productive.
No, I was just gonna ask him. No, I can't. I just don't feel good having a conversation with him. So I don't.
I don't either. I thought we were gonna have a cool combo, and Data's ruined it. So we either leave him on mute, or what do you guys want to do? I mean,
no, I think we should free him, and that's it. I mean, I don't know if anyone else wants.
Comedy hour. So just try doing this sun.
We're supposed to talk about Witsit, but
conversation.
Try to focus on the sun. Don't focus on the star patterns. Focus on the sun and show opposing rotations of the sun.
Well, they happen at different times of the year. So like if you have this is these projections we've talked about, like when I was talking about the two pole thing, essentially you end up with something like this, where you have a straight line at the equator that matches the straight stars. And again, if you put GPs, flags, if you were to go at the equator, you'd put a flag under each star, you'd end up with a straight line. So This shows the equator as a straight line. Then you have the north, and you would have Polaris above that North Pole. All the star rotations would be like those latitude lines all coming out. That's why I was saying like the North AE, but then you'd have a South AE as well. But the sun would only be circuiting in a circle in the north when the sun is at the Tropic of Cancer, when it's in the north. When it gets to the equator, it'd be going straight. And I know there's issues with this because it's like, well, wait a minute, does the sun have to Pac-Man across the other side of the realm? And if that's the case, is there some time when the sun like disappears from reality? This is what Arwen talks about, like an infinitely looping kind of system or something, where you have like, it's not necessarily Pac-Man, but it's like an infinitely looping realm of some sort, because that is one of the challenges that comes with this. That's why I'm saying I'm not asserting this is absolutely what the Earth is. I'm just referring to the path of the sun and what their trip and what the further implications of the sun doing this in the south, which already was known about. I mean, the sun, we already knew the sun, rises south of east and south of west, but some people might have thought that it was just sort of a refracted thing or something. But I mean, the fact that it's more solidified that the sun does actually circle entirely, that means that you have to, and then you have an actual South Pole, then, the ice ring around the outside of an AE map becomes an issue. And that's why in the community, a bunch of people are just calling it fake and saying it, it's fake. And very few people, it seems, are actually having the conversation like we're having right now of what actually would be required in terms of this, to actually be laid out. So that's why my point about the GP, like we know the stars do those two rotations. That's why the ground would have to also be laid out like that. And that's why I was asking, does anybody have any refutation for that? Because the stars make those two rotations.
That is true. That is what's happening.
The way I see it, the way you're saying it, there would have to be like two separate realms for that to occur. Like two separate, like, I don't want to call them hemispheres, or two separate happenings. That's what it sounds like to me.
Like it changes when you go over the equator.
Yeah, like a double system somehow.
There is a map of the two boobs of the system that you're referring to, but it would require an infinity path of the sun.
Well, it wouldn't really need to make a figure 8. You just have, like his animation showed, which you probably didn't even look at, but it's just the field lines of an electric field.
I look at
it's not really
the problem is you need to put a physical object. You have to put a physical object in the path. And then once you see it, forget about the shadow and lights, because that's deceiving. You take the orb, put it along a physical path that creates the light. There's no way that you can get opposing rotations without.
Yeah, but they're not opposing at the same time. The sun is not opposing at the same time. The stars are, but the stars are already doing two counter rotations. The sun is only doing it, 6 months out of the year on each side. So the sun is not the sun is not circuiting in the north and the south at the same time. In the north, it's only circuiting in the north. At the equator, it's at the equator. And then when it's in the south, it's only in the south. So you don't need to have an infinity that's all happening at once. You would just have to have two circuits that happen 2 times of the year or 6 months apart.
Yeah, Data, I'm pretty sure you've actually never modeled this. I don't know if you've actually ever thought about it. You certainly haven't modeled it. If you modeled it, you could clearly see how it's superior to the Gleason map in every way, shape, and form. You could see how it easily, and the southern hemisphere stars are demonstrated. You can easily see how distances match in scale from the northern and southern hemisphere. So I actually feel and believe that you're lying when you claim you did that, and then in the next breath you ask us a question about how the orb works in that thing that you modeled.
Wrong. So I've modeled. People have seen it. I've even been on what's this Pickles Stingray modeling. So that's incorrect. So I've already been down the rabbit hole.
Will you do me a favor and answer honestly this one question? Which between the Gleason variant of FE with the ice ring around the world, because it has to be, and the dual pole variant because you've apparently already modeled it, which one do you prefer? Which one do you think is more closer to the representation of how the world actually is?
I don't think people are living upside down. So the paradox is, which I've always stated for the last few years, is that we live in a paradox where the Earth presents itself as a stationary planar system. However, there's opposing rotations which would require people to live upside down or antipodal, as the ancients described. The ancients described in the Kabbalah.
A or B? Is that A or B? Why can't you answer my question honestly? Stop wasting my time and frustrating me. Is it A or B?
You can't hold on. You can't have two rotations. Now he's going to go into the Kabbalah. You can have two rotations, like in this little GIF I'm posting. That's the two little electric nodes and water, and then they sprinkle little pepper flakes or whatever, and it just shows like two rotating magnetic fields. So you absolutely can have two rotations over a planar surface. That water is flat right there. That water's not curving. The question is how the land is laid out. How do you Pac-Man if you were to go at the equator, east to, if you kept going east or west on the equator? There's other factors like that, but you absolutely can have two rotations. It's an electric field. It's a stereographic projection of it's what stereographic is, which is what that image that was posted before, like basically this, when you have an electric field on the left there, those are electric field lines. That's a ferrocell on the right. Those are all on flat surfaces. You don't need a sphere for that.
I understand that. The issue is that once you put an orb in the pathway, it's got to either bank right or bank left. So if you're going to have it move along this electric field, you still have to have it create an opposing rotation.
So it's the Gleason one then. You're on the Gleason one, which is okay. This isn't it's not a gotcha. It's you think you're the Gleason one.
So again, I disprove both models, the Gleason and the globe, with an observation based in reality.
Okay.
And I've concluded that you can make all kinds of models you want, but you will never be able to model God's creation in totality.
I got you. But which one is more akin? Which one would it be more close to?
I would have no way to test it.
So you just don't know. It's just that this is the road has stopped for you. The road of knowing, of truth seeking, it stopped, and that's okay. That's okay. Thank you very much.
Do you think you can tell 100% definitively?
I mean, SD, isn't it cool? Like what you posted right there. Isn't that like pretty amazing how magnetic fields create those two rotations? I mean, it is a little mystifying how the ground is laid out when you get the east to west at the equator and some of these other factors. But I mean, isn't that just so resonant that that's what the sky does? And if you have consistent GP point, or if you have consistent GP points on the ground with those two rotations, that the ground would be laid out in reflection of what the sky is.
Yeah, that's exactly why I posted this, because when you were saying that, that's exactly. I was thinking magnetism. When you guys were saying two poles, I was thinking exactly that. Yeah, magnetism.
Yeah, it's the way the magnetic. Yeah, exactly. That's how magnetic fields are. That's why, like, I'm kind of excited. Like, I mean, we'll see how it all flows, but like, I mean, if Witsit starts going this route, which I know he didn't really bring that up. I guess he called it the bipolar, and he did bring it up a little bit. Obviously, bipolar is maybe not the best branding, just because bipolar mental issues people have and stuff. But
here's the issue. If you can show when the sun all of a sudden banks from right to left, then you might have something, but you will never be able to do it with that ferrocell representation, putting a physical object moving along a path and then all of a sudden changing direction to create opposing rotations.
Are you
the only way to do it,
the only way to over the equator you're talking about?
You got it. All of a sudden it takes a turn to the left. The only way to do that, like I said, is an infinity symbol or a figure eight.
Well, you didn't look at his Glory's animation.
I did. Again, I've seen them. It's not a new model. They've all tried them. There's so many different versions of these ideas. Nothing's new. He's not presenting anything new. This is why I told him, take a physical object now, not light, and put it along the pathway. When it goes between from the north to the south, speed it up and show me from December 21st to June 21st of how it traverses without creating a figure eight.
Listen, certainly I didn't invent this. I didn't come up with it, nor do I claim to. And you also certainly said that you don't stick to the Gleason, you don't stick to the dual pole, you stick to God's model. Can you go any further scientifically with demonstration?
Again,
I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet. Can you go any further with science and demonstration and visuals, not words? I don't want to sit here and stroke your ego by hearing you. Show us how it is. I don't just want to hear your. We're trying to get to the truth here. Okay? Do you have? Is your eyes on a greater truth that you could demonstrate to us outside of it's God?
So again, you and nobody here will ever definitively be able to explain God's creation. You can have all the models under the sun, but they'll be flawed and not congruent with reality 100%.
All right, well, then if that's not your interest, then maybe, that's not your interest. But we're actually, I don't think that's the case at all. I think the controllers right now that are in the power position or whatever you want to call them, they absolutely know what the Earth is. They absolutely do. I'm not saying they know what
so if that is
I'm
true,
not saying they know what, well, hold on. I'm saying that the known continents, the distances, and how the sun and stars move about it, I have no question in my mind that they have exact models for how that works. Therefore, we can do that ourselves. We don't need to break into their systems and get anything that they have. We can do it ourselves. So I absolutely do think it can be modeled, and I'm happy to dedicate my life to it. If you don't think it can and you just want to throw your arm up and say it can't be done, that's fine. Maybe then this conversation is not, something you're focused on.
Yeah, like we
so here's the issue. Why you guys? Here's the issue. The issue is, what map are you using? Where did you get that map?
I don't have a map. We're talking about how the sky works and how the ground has to be laid out in relation to how the sky works. And the main flat Earth assertion,
you're comparing it to the surface.
Has been the AE map, and their entire debate that they had earlier is at the crux of that. And like I said, Jeran's basically pointing out, hey guys, the AE map doesn't work with the sky. Witsit was basically, in a nutshell, like I said, coming back with various other points, because it's not like Witsit was going to say, hey, here's this dual pole model, it's all solved. Or it wasn't what he was saying. So I mean, that's the crux of this factor, of this entire discussion. And so
what map are you using, Gio? Where do you get the map data from?
There's many multiple projections where there's basically two different poles.
Yeah, there's a bunch of
Are they obligated to give you all the land masses and all the places and positions? Are they obligated to?
One of them is obligated to represent Antarctica as a small ice island continent, and the other one's obligated to represent Antarctica as the border containing everything. Yes.
Yeah, this one here I'm posting is the Lambert azimuthal equal area projection, which is similar to that other one, but it shows two poles and like in terms of having two fixed poles. Like you could go to the North Pole
with a geographical north, right?
Bro, you said you've modeled all this. This is simple things. You should be able to automatically just get all this. I don't understand where these questions are. It's just you've done all this before.
So it doesn't work on a planar system with a diurnal motion and sidereal motion. If you have opposing rotations, it's like I said, the only way is a figure eight, which you would have to have a physical object travel. You'd have to have first of all, if you put a sun and you cycle it through, eventually the sun will have to bank left or right, depending on the season, to have the opposing rotation. You cannot do that in any model unless you use a sphere.
Am I the only one feeling like my life force gets sucked out of me when I listen to this guy?
Yes, it's horrific. It's completely like just killing the conversation. It like if he was a paid agent, he would be doing a good job. And I guess I'm failing by not just leaving him on mute. He's literally just derailing the entire conversation that could have been productive and interesting. I guess I'm just trying not to mute people, trying to let everyone speak. But yeah, like if he was a paid agent, he would be very successful at completely destroying this entire build that we could have had.
How about
I'm just being straight.
How about this? No one here is claiming that this is this primitive model, which we don't even have a specific map for, just a general layout of this. It's kind of like this. Do you have a better way of representing the Earth with our known distances that we traverse every single fucking day on ground than in the air? Okay, no satellites needed. Distances and our stars that we see above us, counter rotations. working in congruence with each other? Do you have a better layout? Not nitpicks, not some fucking random new things we may have never heard of before and should consider. Do you have a better working setup from your experience? Because that's what we're looking for.
Why would you be looking for something that you're starting your premises are fallacious? You're using a map provided by the controllers you claim to have been not telling the truth about this.
No, that's actually what you're doing. And that's what you're doing in your endgame of it was with FE. Do you have, bro, there's like, I don't know where I'm getting talking to this guy.
No, he doesn't want to like build on it.
He's like, this is not a real convo. You're disingenuous.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about I don't know what he's saying about the figure 8 thing, but I mean, your animation showed that when the sun, like with that 2-pole layout, it doesn't really have to make a figure 8. It's just that the sun would have to be just like an electric field. Like when it's at the Tropic of Cancer, let's say, it would be circuiting around the North Pole. As it gets closer and closer to the equator, it would make wider and wider circles from the North Pole, or from the North Pole. It would then start making, just like the magnetic field lines look, it would then start to straighten out the closer and closer it gets to the equator. Now, again, there's like the Pac-Man issue, though, at that point, because on a globe, it's going all the way around the globe. But on this, because it's a planar surface, the sun would have to like leap to the other side, or you'd have to have some kind of infinite looping thing. And that is obviously one of the biggest hurdles to, this being, viable. But nonetheless,
or a figure 8, right?
Hold on, let me just finish. But in terms of just how the electric field ley lines work, when it gets to the equator, it then goes straight when it's on the equinox, which again, you have that Pac-Man issue. And then in terms of what you're talking about at banking, the day after the equinox, it just would start going, it would start arcing towards the south. It would start anti-arcing. It wouldn't really need a figure 8. It just makes a circuit. It gets straighter at the equator, and then it starts making an anti-arc circuit as it goes into the south and starts making that pattern. And then as it continues going to the Tropic of Capricorn, it would then be circuiting the South Pole.
I see two issues with that, though. One is the Pac-Man one, and this is just critique, right? And the other one, how would you have the sun in one spot for like what is it, a week, or how long is the days? 24-hour sun. How would you replicate that?
What do you mean in one spot? You mean when it's doing like a 24-hour sun in the south rotation?
Yeah.
I've tried to model it every way under the sun, man. And the only thing the only way I can come up with it, you'd have to have a Pac-Man or at some point.
Well, like this one that I threw the lines on it at one point on one of these projections, basically it would just be that when the sun is in the southern part of the world, like when it's anywhere south of the equator, it would generally be making that bottom yellow circle, and it would be circuiting. So the people in the north would see the sun rising very low, rising like south of east very low and setting south of west, because they would only be seeing it, in that fashion, even though for the people in the south, they're getting a full 24-hour sun. And then when it's at the equator, it would be making that straight line. And then as it's in the north, it would start making that circuit in the north. So it would just, when it's at the Tropic of Capricorn, they're getting the 24-hour sun, it would just be circuiting them, and then the rest of the world would get their angle to it.
It would have to diverge at some point, creating a figure 8.
Doesn't really diverge. It would just, that circular path.
Two boobs.
That circular path would just straighten out as it gets to the equator, and then it would transition to the other arc, to the arc and the anti-arc, to the other side.
Right. It would look like affinity symbol.
Yeah.
Or better yet, it would look like the meta symbol from Meta.
Well, Lady Blunt, which Jeran mentioned in the debate, she has this is from her book, from her Zetetic Astronomy book. And she sort of shows the two rotations at the other time of the year. You could call that infinity symbol, but the sun is not making a figure 8 at any time, like at any one time. It's not like in one day it's doing a figure 8.
Hey, you brought up the two boobs.
Well, you could call it boobs, eyeballs, left and right hemispheres of the brain. There's a billion things in nature that have this. So it's pretty universal. Electric field.
They look like two boobs to me.
Okay. I mean, if that's where your mind goes, I hear you. 2 testicles, I guess you could make any.
And then biblically, when you die, you go into. Biblically, when you die, they say you go into Abraham's bosom.
Maybe, there you go.
Well, that's what I was talking about before. It would have to be like 2 different circuits, right?
Right.
Kind of like what you're just showing.
Exactly.
Yes, which is what the stars are already doing. Like, for example, this image right here shows like a magnetic field, those flux lines, and it shows how the stars, that's obviously a panoramic of the stars. But what it would be, imagine like that star picture there at the top, that panoramic. You have the north rotation, let's say on your right, the south one, the one on the left is the south one. Well, all those stars are, those circular stars are at particular latitude lines. So like there is a path of stars there that is the Tropic of Cancer. Then there's a path of stars that are right where the equator is. Then there's a path of stars where the Tropic of Capricorn is. So if you were to plop a sun in there, and if the sun, when the sun is in the north, you could put a little dot there and the sun would be tracking right where the stars are at 23.4 degrees on those circular rotations, you could put the sun. So the sun would be making that circuit in the north. Then at the equator, it'd be going straight. And then, like you said, SE, it would have to be making another circuit when it goes into the south, like a whole different circuit, like the other side of the magnetic field. So yeah, it would be like 2 circuits 6 months apart, meeting at the center.
Yeah, look at the one, the A. See the one I just posted? Look at the A one.
Yeah. Which is a universal pattern in nature. And I mean, that's what's interesting about this in terms of that. You know, I mean, it's like universal throughout nature. And yeah, this one shows that one a little bit blown up, kind of, and it puts north and south. And this is what an electric field is. Like we call it the North Pole and the South Pole. Well, that's exactly what an electric field does. It has a North Pole and a South Pole. So you put Polaris under one of them, and the stars circuiting out. You put Sigma Octantis under the south one with the South Pole, and all the star patterns, and then the sun pattern. And that's essentially what it has to be if it's a planar surface. There's really no other options. And that's why I was asking if anyone can refute or have any other, like, would anyone be able to make an assertion of the AE map, still in any way?
Just as a sun calculator, that's it. It works perfectly fine for telling the sunrise, sunset, local noon, etc.
You see, the magnetism part I get, right? I can see how that is, but now the actual movement of the sun, that's pretty tricky. I can't work that out, to be honest with you.
It would have to like whip with the AE.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of mind-blowing that people even ever thought it was the AE, right? With this? Like it's almost
I believed it until I did research on it, because I watched it was an introduction into my reality that I'd never questioned before. And just like, because I was only exposed to the north information, it wasn't until I gathered more of the south information that it contradicted my belief in the north. So it was an evolutionary discovering, and once I discovered it, that's when I created Flat Earth Data, and I started asking all kinds of questions, and because I wanted to see how many flat earthers were doing it, as well as how many globers were also going back from being flat earthers to globe earthers, like Sean G, Jeranism. I called Jeranism right from the get-go. That's why they banned me, is because they would not address the armillary sphere, which refutes the AE map.
I always thought the AE map was it's elegant and kind of beautiful with the continents all coming out from the center. There are like the differences in the north and the south, which are interesting and all of that. Like, but I never like asserted the Earth was the AE map. I always thought it's a good layout for the north. And then in terms of the south, like I always knew, the sun does that in the south, and obviously the 24-hour sun in the south has been a bit elusive to get more data on until recently. So there's that factor, but I always knew that the sun did that in the south, and it was an issue. It was something that was like for the AE map, I'm saying, which is why I never asserted the AE map was what the Earth is, for that and other reasons too. But obviously, we all used it and thought about it as a layout, as an idea, and in terms of that, and it is very kind of elegant, and it works in some ways, but there's a lot of things that are incompatible with it.
Remember Dave Weiss's app? I used a software called Norton 360 something something. I can't remember the name. And anybody who joined Dave Weiss's app would have their location data stored, because every time I use that app, Norton antivirus would warn me. I tried posting and sharing that with people, but people stopped believing it more and more.
So SE, I mean, do you think like one of these dual poles with like, I mean, of course it fits with the magnetism, but I mean, do you think that's even viable in terms of how the sun, like the Pac-Man situation and some of those factors? Like, do you even think that's even like what is your overall view? Like AE map is out, two pole, or do you even think there's another possible option?
Definitely the AE is out for sure. This one here is interesting, but you have the Pac-Man issue. So yeah, I mean,
probably the biggest issue.
Yeah. And then the other issue as well is the sun being at one location for an extended period of time and being dark in another area, you know, that also is an issue.
Oh wait, were you saying with that, like on the two pole thing, if the sun was like south of Antarctica, you're saying that like the entire north would be dark?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's so far away, and like on a globe, that light can wrap around the other side of the globe, but on this, like that can't happen. Is that what you mean?
That kind of a deal. Yeah. Like the globe can sort of like make it like dark on one side and light on the other, the tilt thing, but I'm not saying that's what it is, but I mean, as it goes with the AE, I mean, how could that happen? Like, remember that guy? He made the he put a globe, a dome on top, put a mirror. He tried to, but still, that didn't work out. It was because it was dark on the bottom and just showed like a light going along the sky. Remember that guy? I forgot his name. The guy that came out right after the TFE.
Oh, the Joe Hanvey?
Yeah.
See that one I just posted, that trippy one? See, that's basically how the stars are moving, the northern southern rotation, and they meet at the center, the straight line. I mean, that's just like a toroidal field. See, I just think it's so fascinating that that's how magnetic fields and toroidal fields function. And you would then have to put the sun, though, 6 times of the year, 6 months apart, either circuiting on the right side of that or the left side of it, in order for that dual pole type of thing.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like the magnetic thing, I get it, but the sun can't be doing those two loops at the same time.
Well, it would be like 6 months apart. Like it would only be happening very slowly. Like it would be in the north, and then it would transition through the 6 months, to the other side. Like it wouldn't be making the loops at the same time, I'm saying.
I think this is where Data's Crazy 8 comes in. Is that what you were saying, Data? The transition there in between?
Well, how else do you get the sunlight to reach in the same distance, but yet have opposing rotations? I've tried it, man. It just doesn't work. So if you end up, it's a paradox, man, because the Earth presents itself one way and the celestial data represents another. I just can't reconcile people living upside down, man.
Yeah, look, I tried to work it out in my head and I can't. So, I mean, if anybody can do it, let me know. But to me, it doesn't work out. An AI with one sun, it doesn't work out.
There is only one sun, man. There's not multiple suns either.
And as far as we know, the sun doesn't like Pac-Man or flip around or anything. Like there's people who can see the sun all the time, so it's not like it just leaves reality for a minute and then shows up in some other place. That's why Arwen talks about like the infinite looping kind of idea.
Arwen equals 33.
Best C character.
Is that a damn Cajun I just heard there?
One of the best. Just got in.
Where the hell you been, bro? What the hell, man? What's up?
You wouldn't even believe it if I told y'all where I've been.
Hey, you got to include the firmament when you're talking about how the lights act in the sky. Truth will
Hell
set
yeah,
you
good to
free.
hear you, brother.
I've even tried to model the firmament and showing the opposing rotation by having the sun travel inside. Let's say you had the obviously I mimicked perspective, which would give you that dome effect, and adding in a glass effect, but having the body of the sun in between, like let's say it's inside of a vault, if you will. So we have the vision of perspective. Then we have the sun inside a vault. So when we see our vision, we're going to see all this refraction. And so I tried to model the sun moving straight overhead. And in doing so, you could see it has the refraction effects, makes it appear to go another direction when it's traveling straight. So that is possible. But in totality for the whole model, I could not do it. I could do it in small sections, giving the illusion that it's traveling in a left or right motion, but traveling straight due to refraction. So
I get that part because
in other words, hold on. In other words, you're emulating the idea of a Pac-Man effect, but because you have this refraction effect due to the firmament, it will appear to go left or right, but it's actually traveling straight.
Yeah, a visual effect that appears to be a Pac-Man. But you can do this on your kitchen counter, get a glass of water and put a arrow behind it and move it, and the arrow change direction. It looks like it's going in the opposite direction. Just with a glass of water.
However, you cannot take a physical object and have it on a circuit and do that. In other words, I've taken your particular idea, taking, let's say, concentric circles, and then putting a glass orb over top, like you've seen many demonstrations, but I've modeled it. And what I've done is I put a physical orb traveling along a circuit. There's no way you can get it to change course or apparent position. It will stick to its course. In other words, it will not change direction, which you need it to change direction because you're invoking refraction. So if it's along a course, it will not change course based on refraction.
Well, you're saying that I need something. I don't need anything. I don't think we have all the parts. But you trying to model without all the parts. I'm just saying there's definitely things that we know we can model that would, if we had all the parts, you could put it all together and, make it look like what we see. But apparently it is something happening up there. Seems to be water, seems to be some type of, I would call it a physical dome, but it doesn't have to be. That's causing all this, how we see things, especially light. But anyway, hey, y'all have a good night. Good to hear from a lot of people.
Hey, don't be a stranger. Where the hell you been?
We're traveling the world right now. I'm leaving. I just got home about 15 minutes ago from a trip, and then we're leaving Monday night to go back to Vegas. So, yeah, we've been crazy. Got four different cruises planned and a lot of trips planned right now. So we're just living life.
Good stuff, bro. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, we're going to see the Northern Lights on an Alaskan cruise, and then I have 3 other cruises, and then about 4 or 5 other trips that are just back to back to back. It's been nuts, but it's been great. So, y'all have a good night.
Night, brother.
Anyways, I didn't know we had a map though. According to Jeran, we have a map. Does anybody have that map?
According to who?
Jeran? That's what he said. It wouldn't work no other way, We only have one flat Earth map.
The issue is the map that we're using. Do you think that, like Geo, you claim that the controllers know the shape of the Earth and know everything? Does that mean that they're going to provide us with a map that's accurate to the T?
Well, they're concealing it from us. So no, they're not going to give that to us.
So how would you?
They're giving us the fake globe and telling us that's.
Oh. Okay. Well, you all maps start with a geographical north position, right? Mathematically, and it's either is it a 90 to Polaris or a point degree off of Polaris, which is what 70, 80 miles, 69 miles off.
Let me ask you, because I didn't get to hear all of. I only caught the last end for some odd reason. The it wasn't working on my phone. But I only caught the last end at my computer. Anything else that he said that was good or bad?
He said never listen to this guy called Elbow. He used to go by the name Elbow.
That makes perfect sense.
What about the other guy, Banjo guy? That guy's pretty he's lying quite a bit.
The controllers have to have the map of the Earth. I mean,
you think?
Yeah, they have all the military equipment. They have access to, as well, certainly more than we do. So yeah, absolutely, they have to. They're able to monitor radar, do everything that they're doing. Yeah. They give us the globe and the AE map.
That's not true. They have a boob map. They have they have maps from the 1500s, 1600s. That's not true. They have multiple maps.
No, well, there are a bunch of projections. Yeah, I mean, there's the Mercator, like the square one. There's like a two-pole flat Earth type layout. There's a single pole flat Earth layout like the AE and a globe. That's pretty much the extent of it.
And what's the common theme between all of those maps?
Well, it's like the globe doesn't work with the lack of curvature and motion. The square one, there's several things with that, if one was to try to assert that. The two-pole has the Pac-Man issue, and the AE map has like various issues. 24-hour sun in the south, the GP points at the stars and sun. The equator's straight, and the AE shows it circular.
I believe that all the land masses are incorrect in sizes. And that they're all meant to fit points on a grid.
Which Antarctica is more or closer to the real one?
Probably the one Russia did in 1500s.
This whole thing may be something like if we put together a team and have all the funding to just go ahead and travel all around the world, take billions of angles to stars, map GPs, measure distances on the ground, like basically map the entire Earth ourselves, which technically you can be done. I mean, unless they come and kill you or something. But I mean, I'm just saying, like a billionaire today could do that. Probably cost $50 million, whatever it would cost. Get the team together and do it. And it'd be interesting if that was done, and then we all looked at it and like, oh, that's what it is. Well, there it is. It's not really that complicated once you just have the correct thing. Be interesting if that ends up being the case. It's like, oh, well, that's what it is. And it would all click and make sense.
There's, speaking of something we can do, right? And maybe I can bring this up another time, but there's this dude that came up with a new form of gravity, believe it or not. Anyways, that's an aside, which is the main thing, but there's the test, right? I'm sure you guys heard of it before, the drop tower. So I kind of been looking into this, and there's something to this, man. Like they take, I think 5 or 6 or 7 different masses, and they drop them in the tower, right? We've talked about this before. But the thing is, what I didn't know was they only did it one time. And they wouldn't allow the guy to do it again. The guy took them to court, as a matter of fact. And it's like, what? So what this shows is that when they drop the test mass, which is a box of is it aluminum? I believe it's aluminum. And the other masses that are in there, they drop at a different rate. So this is something that we can do. We can actually prove or disprove that things fall at the same rate?
Montreal, I literally give you an exercise that shows you that with pennies and nickels.
Pennies and nickels? You think that's going to cut it?
No, nickels and quarters. So what you do is you set up your camera, make sure you're doing 24 frame rate or 60 frame rate, and you have like let's say a foot long string or 2 foot long string, and the string is attached to the nickel or the quarter in the middle, and you drop it at a 10 degree angle, and then you record it with the camera, the swing. You take a calculation, which is there. It's not my calculation. It's actually a calculation to calculate the rate of g, little g. And you can prove to yourself that if you vary the weight, you vary the rate of little g.
Well, I'm talking about a controlled in a vacuum environment. I mean, you know, you're going to get a lot of questions with that, right? Did you control this? Did you control this variable, the other variable? You understand what I'm saying? I'm talking
sure.
about
air resistance. But if you're gonna still have the calculation of next to 1, or the air is classified as 1, then and you're in an environment that doesn't really have much other than, you know, there's no actual movement really, stagnant air. Sure, you're going to get a little bit of resistance to it, but you're going to still fundamentally see a weight change difference based on the object. So if it's true and you can prove it, then it must mean that if I remove the air, I'm still going to have a difference in oscillation based on weight. And air is a minor factor because, like I said, it's not you're such a small object that how much resistance can it really? How much air can it really resist? Especially it's aerodynamic like a nickel or a quarter.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I hope you hear what I'm saying, right? A controlled environment where nobody can use any like control variables against us or this or that or the other thing. So like, I'll try to post what I'm talking about. And like I said, this guy came up with a new form of gravity, a new theory of gravity, based not on mass, but in the amount of particles. Anyways, that's a whole story, like a whole other combo we can have another time. But yeah, this drop tower thing, we've always been looking to do something, right? Well, this is a very doable thing that I'm sure we can crowdfund for this one.
You know, there's already a documentary out where they're showing you that the rate of gravity changes based on even rainfall, right?
Yep.
That's where I actually got the idea, is because if rainfall can affect it in a vacuum, then why would air resistance be such a big deal, especially if you have something that's aerodynamic and it's not resistant at all, right? Really, or there's not much resistance if you.
Yeah, but it's one thing to talk about it and one thing to show it with a camera, slow-mo, in a controlled environment. That'll blow like one of their top things out of the water. Well, we all knew it's bull, right? Their thing of gravity, right?
Mass attracting mass, bending of space-time, quantum foam. Which one do you want to choose?
Well, yeah, but we're talking about with the consistency now of whatever it is, right? It has to be constant, right? We're talking about disproving the consistency that blows it out of the water, whichever one it is. Whether it's mass attracting mass or the fabric of space-time, it has to be consistent, right? On it, no matter what the object is, whether it's a feather or a hammer, it falls at the same rate, right? Well, if you show that it's not uniform, it's game over.
Well, here's the thing: is that the constant was developed. This issue is over a longer distance is where you get the discrepancy. That's what I've noticed. So in other words, all of these tests for this 9.8 meters per second is just over shorter distances. That's from all the tests that I've seen in experiments. And then the test that you just invoked is not over a short distance, isn't it? It's over a longer distance. What's the distance?
I forget how tall that tower is. It's quite tall. I forget the exact. I'm not gonna throw a number out there. I forget what it is. It's the Bremen Tower. If anybody wants to Google it, I think it's in Germany.
Well, here's my conundrum with it, or my contention, is that if an object increases in velocity, the higher elevation, then it can't be at a constant rate because it would be exponential. So how can you have something increase in speed as you drop it, maintain a constant rate? Explain that to me.
No, not the constant rate. The
9
different objects falling at the constant rate, not the rate changing.
Okay, so here's the thing, right? So the test was back in the day, there was a marble slab or a plate, and they took that happened. They took the marble, they dropped it even higher, and they're like, oh, wait a second, holy cow! This marble, when I drop it at a higher rate, it has more velocity to it, more energy distributed. What's causing this? I increase the height of it. It obviously has more force to it. So if it's gaining more force, that means it must be gaining energy, which means it has to be speeding up. So how do you get a constant rate? The only way to get a constant rate is over a shorter distance between two objects. They don't have enough time to reach their potential, which means if you put them up higher, they're going to whatever the two different masses are going to reach the two different potentials. In other words, they'll have two different forces as a result. And if they have two different forces, that means they don't not at a constant speed.
Isn't that what terminal velocity pretty much means? Like, how far is terminal velocity?
So terminal velocity.
Terminal velocity there. That's right. That's not what we're talking
hold on.
about.
Oh, no. Now you invoke terminal velocity to offset the exponential rate of acceleration due to the height. I'm saying that in these controlled experiments, there is no terminal velocity because there's no air resistance. Air resistance is what causes terminal velocity.
Well, you're talking about a vacuum? You were talking about a vacuum? Oh, okay, yeah.
No, you invoke terminal velocity, proving my point that offsets the exponential rate because there is a slowing down due to resistance. I'm saying from my observations and my own testing that if I have two various objects and I have a greater distance between them, I will notice a discrepancy in the acceleration or the force it creates. Because how does two marbles travel at a constant rate, but one marble has more of a force just because you increase distance? So if I increase distance, but yet has a constant rate, where does the extra force come from?
Well, I mean, you have to find the terminal velocity of every object. Every object has a different terminal velocity, don't they? I think so, right? Yeah, obviously, yeah.
If you're invoking air, right? If you're putting an air in place, you're going to have that. But that's not my point. My point is that if you have an observation to a marble, doesn't change.
That's in a vacuum.
But
that's in a vacuum.
I'm not talking about vacuum just yet. I'm talking about a force being applied or an increase in force being applied based on height. So isn't it true that the higher the distance the object falls, the more force it has upon impact? So if it's traveling at a constant rate, how does it increase? How does it gain more momentum or more force?
I think I know what he's talking about. So the higher it is, the more time it has to gain speed. Is that what you're trying to say?
Sure, but if it's at a
whatever you want to call it.
Sure. Well, everything has potential energy, right? The idea is that if it increases its force, how does it do so if it's a constant rate? In other words, I'm saying that it can't be a constant rate because it's accelerating to create the force. And the only way that you can show that is increasing the distance.
So you think it accelerates forever if you bring it up high enough? Is that what you're trying to say?
I wouldn't say that. I would say that from my own direct observation.
Yeah, that was a good
done. That when I change the object's weight, I get a different rate than 9.8 meters per second, which would lead me to believe that if I had a heavier object in a greater distance and a lighter object in the same distance, the one that's heavier will create a greater force therefore not being that, therefore traveling at a instead of a 9.8, it will travel potentially even faster, right?
But even if you dropped them in a vacuum, unless it's a perfect vacuum, the shape of the objects are going to come into play at some point. There's going to be drag there, as minimal as it'll be. Like the feather in the bowling ball just mathematically can't be falling at the same rate because there has to be like drag there. I mean, they drop them over 2 feet, 5 feet. You know what I'm saying?
That's my point.
10,000 feet. There'll be some drag there on the feather.
I'm just saying that all observations to get this constant 9.8 is over shorter distances. When you change weight and change distance, you don't get this 9.8 that they claim is a constant.
Yeah, you'll have to like show that in some of your work that you did. Yeah, just
I did. I did it with George Nutsack live on Brendan's channel.
Oh, okay. I didn't see it.
This is like 5 years ago.
Oh, okay. I was going to say George hasn't been in the crowd in a while, hasn't he?
If Riggs is listening, there's an exercise in the book. Sorry to bring it up. I hate to do that, but I don't know why Jeremy hasn't looked at it. I didn't make any of this stuff up. All I did is go through the live exercise.
You got a link to that?
You should have a video or a link that goes along with the book. So while you're reading, and you're like, "Yeah, I did this measurement," and then that'd be cool.
I'll probably be disappearing again.
It'd be interactive
for a while. It's all been done before. I didn't do anything new. All I did was learn the material, look at the theory, and take away what I believe to be true from it. And I loved every minute, by the way. I love math, physics, and geometry, and science.
So I just dropped the thing of the drop tower I'm talking about.
What did you say, Jeremy?
When all the elements drop and they bounce and they land at different rates at different times. You're saying they only did that once.
I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying from my own experience. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, bro, they only did that once. Yeah. That's what caught my attention.
That's pretty awkward because you figured you'd want to like investigate that more.